Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you're just tuning in, we just finished going over the NBA-All-Star selections, the Western and Eastern Conference. In this segment, we're going to take a look at some of the NFL news, some coaching drama between Liam Coen, the new head coach of the Jags, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as well as some wide receiver moves and rumors from around the NFL as we get into the offseason coming up soon. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, January 31st. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit of NFL talk here. The NFL, we're going to start off with the coaching side of things as the messy divorce between Liam Coen and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers continues to get messier. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course, if you're unfamiliar with the saga, thought they were getting Liam Coen back as their offensive coordinator. He goes and has a secret meeting with the Jags and finds his way to be their next head coach after originally pulling his name out of consideration. They then fire their GM and everything turns around. He gets himself a head coaching opportunity. Now he's looking to fill out his staff. And the Tampa Bay Bucs are still not happy about the whole situation. They were about to make him one of the highest paid coordinators in the history of the NFL. They were happy to have him back. They were ready. They had the contract all drawn up. He was supposed to go sign that contract. He was supposed to go over there and sign to be the Bucs continue being the Bucs offensive coordinator. Instead, they need to find their fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years. Liam Coen, trying to fill out his staff here, is trying to get interviews, trying to have permission to interview offensive line coach Kevin Carberry and assistant offensive line coach Kevin Pickney. Right, these are guys that he's worked with, that he wanted to fill out his staff with, but the Bucs have denied that request. They're not going to let Liam Coen poach anybody else from their staff, and that's just them being a little petty after the whole messy divorce situation. They've also found their next offensive coordinator. The Bucs are elevating from within, bringing up Josh Gizzard. He was on the Bucs staff last season. He is now the new Bucs offensive coordinator. That is 4 offensive coordinators in the last 4 seasons for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They found a way to be successful under every single one of them, but eventually time is going to run out. Eventually they're going to run out of luck. They're going to run out of guys that can be these great offensive coordinators that are just waiting in the wings in this Bucs organization. But keeping a couple guys around, being petty with the Jags, I completely understand, especially after the way that Liam Coen walked out on you, just left you out to dry, ghosted you in the middle of the night, stopped responding to your messages and said, actually, I'm going somewhere else. It's a mess. It was a messy divorce, and it's going to be tough for Liam Coen to build out your staff. You know, all over the NFL, these teams that have been hiring from coordinators around the league, the Lions staff have been almost completely emptied out after Aaron Glenn has hired a bunch of people from them, after Ben Johnson has gone back to the well and hired a bunch of coaches from the Lions staff. This happens everywhere, right? When you leave a place, you have coaches you like, you have guys that you've talked about with, you're comfortable with, you want them to be with you, you want to elevate them, you want to promote them. These are guys that are coming in from that you're familiar with and you see it, but it's just going to make the job a little bit harder on Liam Coen. But at the end of the day, I think it's probably best that for Liam Coen and the Jags that they weren't able to poach more from the Bucs. I think this Bucs coaching staff is good. I think it's good, and we've seen that from their ability to continue to find offensive coordinators after they leave to go get more guys and step up. But at the end of the day, what Liam Coen, I think, needs most in the building is not guys that are his friends, especially as a first-time head coach and offensive-minded guys that's going to go call plays. I think he needs someone that has done it before, can help him, figure out how to navigate being a head coach, because being a head coach is different than being an offensive coordinator. I'm not saying that Liam Coen doesn't have the ability to do it. Everything I've seen about him, he seems like he's doing his best to connect with the players. He's gotten better at saying Duval. They gave him another chance. But this is something that he's gonna have to learn. And having an experienced guy, one of the more positive trends in the NFL as far as hiring goes is when you have an offensive-minded head coach and a former defensive coordinator and former head coach as a defensive coordinator. If they can go out and hire someone like that, I think that would be huge for this Jags team to go out and get success, to go out and build around Trevor Lawrence, to build around some of the talented pieces that they have on both offense and on defense. That's not going to be easy to do, but I think the Bucs turning down his ability to go and get guys that he likes from that staff is going to help him be a better head coach at the end of the day. But that's not the only NFL news that I wanted to go over. There's also some NFL wide receiver drama, and it's not just with the Bengals. We'll start off with the Bengals because they need to go and figure out what they're doing at the wide receiver position. They need to go and they need to find which one they're going to pay. Ja'Marr Chase, who just ended up winning the Triple Crown for wide receivers, the second guy to do it in the last 5 years after Kupp did it not too long ago. He's the other one that we're going to talk about here in a second. But the Bengals need to sign either him, Ja'Marr Chase, or they need to go ahead and get T. Higgins because both of those guys are due for contract extensions. They franchise tagged T. Higgins last season. Both of these guys seems like they want to come back to play with Joe Burrow, to play with the Bengals, but they don't have the money to do that. The way that defense was playing, committing what will be at this point around $60-65 million to your wide receiver position after already committing $55 million to your quarterback position, that puts $120 million total on the offensive side of the ball when the defense was playing historically bad throughout the course of the NFL season this year. This is one where we turn around and we say one of them is just going to have to go. But the bigger story with this is not the fact that they're not going to be able to pay both of them. The bigger fact is that this happened because they were cheap. And the Bengals ownership has a history of being cheap, right? A long time. They have a history of not getting the facilities right for their players, not dishing out the money for their players, frankly, not having the money to pay their players, right? But what this says to me more than anything is there's a consequence to not paying your guys. And I don't know why when you have these guys that you have decided that you want to pay, you have these guys that you've decided you want to keep around, you're not going to do it. Because the way that the NFL works, the salary cap's going to continue to go up. That's why we see contracts like Patrick Mahomes, who's at the time signed what was a $500 million contract. Of course, not all of it guaranteed, but a $500 million contract ended up being team-friendly over 10 years because it ages better the longer that contract is. Because the salary cap and players' salaries themselves are going to continue to go up. The wide receiver market exploded last offseason. You could have gotten T. Higgins for $20 million if you signed him early enough last offseason, and he was eligible for that contract way early on in the offseason. Instead, now wide receiver contracts are up at $34, $35, $36 million a year. You could have signed Ja'Marr Chase for $30 million, $35 million a year. Instead, now you're going to have to pay Ja'Marr Chase $42 million a year. He's going to want to get paid like the best wide receiver in the world. Because he just won the Triple Crown for wide receivers. He currently, if you go off stats from last season, is the best wide receiver in the world. T. Higgins, not too far behind him, is going to be asking for Brandon Ayuk type money. He's going to be asking for $30 million. These are the guys that you could have saved an extra $15 million a year if you would sign them last season. You could have saved $15 to $20 million a year if you, as the Bengals ownership, had said, you know what, we're going to swallow this now so that it looks better in the future on our books. You had the cap space to do it, and now they're just going to have to lose one of them. Of course, it seems like they're going to lose T. Higgins. I don't know how you let Ja'Marr Chase go, but that extra $15 million, that could have been used to go out and get a solid defender, a good safeties, a couple of corners, if you wanted to go out and get them that way in free agency, right? Being cheap is not good in the NFL. You need to go out, you need to spend on your guys, because at the end of the day, the quicker you spend on them, the more of a discount it's going to be in the future. And if you already know that you're going to keep them around, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense at all why you're waiting until they're able to be a free agent, until they hit the open market, until other teams can bid on them and the price tag gets higher and higher and higher, and you just eventually have to let them go. But the other piece of wide receiver news going on around the NFL is that Cooper Kupp, the previous winner of the Triple Crown, one of just 6 guys in the history of the NFL to do it, is apparently out of the Rams building. He in 2021, just 3 years ago at this point, won the Triple Crown, won the Super Bowl MVP, won a Super Bowl with the Rams, and an Offensive Player of the Year. He was amazing with them, and he's been dealing with his fair share of injuries. He's dealt with his fair share of injuries in the past. He's dealt with them recently. But now with Matthew Stafford coming back, it's announced, it seems as if the Rams are parting ways with Cooper Kupp. He really took a backseat last season to Puka Nacua, who emerged as a true wide receiver 1 over there. I thought it would be more of a 50-50 split, but he's going to hit that market, and he's a guy that at age in his 30s isn't going to command that top tier money. He's coming off of a little bit of a down year, a little bit of a year that, hey, that doesn't scream how good he is, but he's a guy that if he gets with the right quarterback, if he gets within the right system, and he's able to stay healthy, could be really, really good for any one of those teams to get. You go look at a team like the Bengals, we were just talking about, say they sign Jamar Chase to that $40 million a year, and then they go get Cooper Kupp instead of for $30 million like they would have to do for a guy like T. Higgins. You might be able to get him for 1 year 20, 1 year 15. And there you go. You save a little bit of money. The Titans, of course, always looking for receivers. The Giants are a place that I think would be really cool to see. Cool to see a guy like Cooper Kupp in as a slot receiver. He's going to go just about anywhere he wants. Probably going to go to a contender. Maybe the Chiefs go and sign him. Maybe the Dolphins go out and get him. Maybe the Colts go out and get a receiver because they are sorely lacking in there. But Cooper Kupp is a guy that's going to hit the open market, and he's going to be one of the bigger fish out there in free agency. I'm curious how much he's going to go for, especially after a couple of down seasons and a couple of bad injuries for Cooper Kupp. But let me know what you think of what's going on with the wide receivers in the NFL. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, some back-end stuff with ESPN and the ACC. They've found a way to extend a TV deal after all the drama going through with lawsuits and everything going on in college football. The ACC is at least going to stay around until 2036. That's really huge. We'll talk about that coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.